What it is, y'all, it's your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back with more Danmachi. Today we are going to be talking about the new banners incoming. Lyra and Kaguya. These are the only two units on this new banner. Now, we do have rerun banners incoming for the 3rd anniversary, the Dion Keck story. But I'll be honest with you guys, those units are pretty old. And while there are rebalances, we'll talk about those towards the end of the video. You guys know rerun banners, mostly for collection. Even if the units do get some semblance of rebalances, they're never enough to make them ultimately relevant for the long term. They might be relevant at the moment, but they're going to fade very, very, very quickly. So we'll talk about them here in a moment. Let's talk about Lyra and Kaguya first. And we'll start off with Lyra. 4366 for her HP, which is really good. Endurance is 522. Dex is 1006, which is really high. 1266 for agility as well, so she's a fast unit. And 2010 is her magic attack, so really solid stats, but you would kind of expect that out of these units. She is time limited, so it's kind of a get her now or don't worry about it type of situation. And if you guys were not here for the 3rd anniversary, these units will probably be new CP for you. If you were here for the 3rd anniversary, these are basically new units based on these characters. But let's talk about what they do first and foremost, okay? So Lyra specifically here. Skill 1 is a 91 MP cost, foes plural, super thunder magic attack with ultra uncounter rate. Removes self, status debuffs, and foes. Agility and thunder resist down 40% for 5 turns with 2 additional actions. Foes plural mid thunder magic attack, and shorten foes strength magic agility buffs and allies strength magic agility debuffs by 3 turns. So if your unit has strength magic or agility buffs on them, they will basically get a 3-turn reduction. And most units buff those by 3 to 4 turns. Rarely do those get buffed by 5. They do happen sometimes, but they're rare. Which basically means the whole purpose in this is when you hit them turn 2, basically by that point it kind of wears it out. It basically means that they have to rebuff it on turn 3. Nice. It's a little icing on the cake for Wargame. You know, most of the time Wargame, you're not looking at going... Well, I guess Familia Wargame, you're not trying to go beyond turn 4. So it's kind of like, I would say a last-ditch effort, but basically a way to make sure that on turn 3, they're not going to be as deadly. So really, like, for Wargame, really good. For Familia Wargame, I would even rate it a little bit higher, because in Wargame, you've got a bit of leeway. With Familia Wargame, you have to finish them off quickly, so you do build slightly different teams for the two. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but it is not. Believe me, it's a thing. Ask anybody who mains like stall teams in regular Wargame, and then you come Familia Wargame. That can actually be a liability, so, you know, it's a thing. Skill 2 is a 62 MP cost, allies fast, 30% HP heal, and guard rate, and AoE and single target damage taken down 35%. So let's kind of go back here. So 30% HP heal, guard rate, AoE, and single target damage down 30%. So it's, I'm going to guess it's guard rate plus 30%, because it's written down here, guard rate down 30%. I'm going to, since it's all allies, I'm going to guess it's guard rate plus 30%. It's a weird way to word it. I think that just might be a weird translation. That is all for 1 turn, though. So do note, that is 1 turn. So you basically have to spam that. And since the extra skill is 2 additional actions, basically you would do skill 2, and then you got to have somebody that replicates those, or it kind of becomes a moot point. Also, and I forgot to mention this, also in this is a self, magic agility, thunder attack damage, physical resistance, and magic resistance, all up 60%. So basically she turns herself into a tank, which is really nice, because her endurance stat ain't great. But you get that skill 2 off, it's going to be really hard to kill her. Skill 3 is a foe singular super thunder magic attack with ultra and guard rate, great magic boost, and sleep. Now, the sleep is a nice thing to add in there, because I always say those skill 3s are kind of throwaway. The whole point in a skill 3 on a wargame unit is if you're like taunted or something. That's about the only time that skill 3 would really get used. Having sleep on there basically means it's another way to punish your taunter. Put them to sleep. That is actually shockingly good. So while I normally say kind of like, temporary great magic boost, yeah, it's not going to do damage. Point's not to do damage. The point's to put your taunter to sleep. So she's got a really good, I'll call it a counter, though it's not really. It is kind of a counter in a way, but it's not an anti-ailment. It's a counter ailment. It's a weird thing. But basically, if she gets taunted, she'll counter or taunt her. It's kind of the way that works. Hopefully that makes sense. SA is Ultra Thunder Magic Attack with Ultra and Guard Rate, Temporary Great Magic Boost, and seal and remove status buffs. So all status buffs are gone. And 3 additional actions, Foes Plural Mid Thunder Magic Attack, shorten Strength Magic Agility buffs and Allies Strength Magic Agility debuffs by 4 turns instead of 3. So that SA becomes really good, but I'll be honest with you, you're probably going to do damage with an SA. You're not going to use you're not going to use a debuffing SA, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Her SA's nice, but it's going to be so rare that you're going to use it. It's going to kind of be like a desperation move. Her passives are 45% water resistance, counters, and all regular attacks are thunder magic attacks, 35% magic agility and dex, 20% damage on critical and penetration, 35% damage reduction on guard. Remember, she has a guard rate buffer there. That's another reason I say the guard rate is a buff, not a debuff like it's written. And 20% physical and magic resistance. No killer skill. Noted. I really like Lyra. I think she's really good for Wargame. Is she groundbreaking? No, but she's kind of like, dare I say, playing it safe? Because she's a weird build. Because you have to do skill 1, then skill 2, and then you have to go back to skill 1 again to rebuff those extra actions. You might be able to do skill 1, then skill 2 twice. It's a possibility, but you got to be really, really, really certain that you're going to take out your opponent. So building her in Wargame is not going to be like super intuitive. You're going to have to be pretty good at Wargame builds to build her out. So if you're looking for like an easy build, she's not an easy build by any stretch, but she's definitely not like the craziest, most advanced build. You just really have to know your Wargame strategy in order to use a unit like this. Good unit. I honestly would say most people should probably go after it for no other reason than the CP. Remember, if you were not here for the 3rd anniversary, she is fresh CP, which means you can farm her for a sum total of 450 free-to-play Iris, though remember, that is a long-term Iris investment. That's not instantaneous. But good unit nevertheless, and I like her. Let's move on to Kaguya. I was butcher her name. And she's a 4616 HP, which is really nice, and 757 endurance. So Kaguya is going to be hard to kill. 1014 for dex and 1159 for agility. Not the fastest unit around, but definitely not slouch. 2179 for her physical stat is really solid. What does she do, though? Skill 1 is a 74 MP cost. Foes, plural. Slow. Physical resist down 35% for 5 turns. Not the highest stat we've seen in that, but for 5 turns is really nice. Self, agility plus 70%, so she gets quick, she gets speedy. But we also do see that in a lot of units lately. So she's going to win races against older units. Is she going to win a race against the most modern units? She'll be up there, but it's really going to come down to, CP levels. It's going to come down to whether, she's completely max ascended. A lot of this is going to be just a raw numbers game at that rate. But she is speedy, and she's really, really quick. Just not the fastest overall. Let's see. One additional action. What? One additional action. Yeah, weird. I don't think I've seen one additional action before. Foes, plural. Mid-dark physical attack with ultra penetration rate. Skill damage plus 35% per foe. Strength and magic and agility buff. Removes those said specific buffs. So here's the reason that that's the case, because basically skill 1 then kind of becomes your spammable skill. Sort of. basically you do skill 1, then you do skill 2. And because she's foes plural, remember, you're thinking war game almost instantly. So basically this is to accompany her skill 2 or to spam skill 1. Skill 2 is a self, fast, strength, and dex plus 60%, dark, attack damage, and SA charge 100% for 1 turn, and remove status debuffs. Here's the big downside to her, and it's an interesting build, because you basically have to do skill 1, then skill 2, which is strange, but it is what it is, because you need to have somebody that replicates buffs, so those buffs stay in play. Otherwise, you're going to run into some problems. So both Kaguya and Lyra's one big thing is that you need somebody on there that replicates buffs. If you don't have that unit on there, these units become exceptionally hard to use in a long-term scenario. So that is the one like big downside to these units. There's a lot of units that do that though, so it's not daunting. It's just one thing you got to think of, because most of their skills look like they're 1 turn. I don't know. Basically, you can do her skill 1, then her skill 2. Her extra action's going to happen on the skill 2, and then go back to skill 1. That doesn't mean it's going to be turn 4 before you get the extra action again. Or if you do skill 2, you really need to have somebody right out of the gate that does buff replication. But that's pretty rare. Usually, you're going to go 1, 2, and then spam 1. Or skill 3, which I forgot. Skill 3 is also an AoE. Skill 3 is a foe's plural fast, super dark physical attack with ultra encounter rate. Skill damage 20% per foe. And remember, this is per unit that she's attacking. So everybody on the team's going to have a little different buff. Strength, magic, and agility buff. So if they have a strength buff on the adventurer side, that's 20. Strength buff on the assist side, that's 40. Magic buff on the adventurer side, that then becomes... math, 60. Assist side, that then becomes 80. Then it goes up to 100 and 120. Sum total max of 120. Because we tested it in the past, and I don't believe, unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe that Memoria counts in this. So yeah, it's a sum total of 120 damage she can do there. She also does a self-strength, dex, and dark attack damage plus 60% on that. So a really good skill, but once again, you kind of have like someone to replicate skill 2. It's like her big like Achilles heel. Once again, not daunting, but it is what it is. You got to keep that. You got to keep those numbers in mind. SA is a foe's plural ultra dark physical attack with ultra penetrate skill damage 60% per self, strength, magic, and agility buff. I love that, because those 60 that is something you can help. Remember, self, strength, magic, and agility debuff. So here's the big deal. You are probably going to get hit with all 3. That is just the reality. And if they've built a team right, you're going to get hit with all 3, and you're going to get hit with all 3 on the adventure and the assist side. Look at how much damage this becomes. If you have all 6 of those, 6 times 6, that's a 360% hit. And it is AoE. And it only matters what is actually debuffed on you. So, here's the deal. If you have all 3 of those debuffs on the adventure and the assist side, we're talking, once again, the only way that's going to happen is Wargame, then she's going to hit like a truck. That is her big hit right there. Though, if I'm honest, since it is Wargame, buff replication still is a major factor because skill 2. Though her SA gauge charge gain being on 100% is going to be another big factor in that, because she's going to get these SAs quick, fast, and in a hurry in comparison to other Wargames units. There are some Wargames units out there that do this. She's just kind of designed to do that a little bit faster than others. So if you build her team right, you basically build her so she does her SA, and then you want your opponent to debuff you. Now, debuffing has been something that has been heavily punished in Wargame as of late. So people with Wargame builds that do tons of debuffing. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of those characters out there now that punish debuffing. But I still see a lot of people do it, so it's like, it is what it is. I like this unit. I really, really, really love her SA. I think her SA is stellar. If you can get it off on turn 4 in Familia Wargame, you're going to win. You just have to make sure that you build her to be as speedy as humanly possible. I also forgot that at the end of all that, she does a foe's plural physical resist down 60%. So she does a big physical debuff on top of all that. Really good unit. Solid unit. I like her a lot. I will probably build a new Wargame team just around her because I really do like her that much. But it also comes down to how many I pull on the banner tonight. But I do think she's definitely an asset that I'm going to try to obtain. And both units are time limited, so this is just like a one and done deal. Like, treat it like one and done. They may come back, you just don't know if or when. So treat this like a one and done. That is my one warning to you guys. If you mess around and you wait for another opportunity, it may or may not come. Let's talk about rebalances, because I think that, you know, the Astrea Record thing is just a no-brainer. You've got to summon on this if you are going after Wargame in any major capacity. There are, of the 6 units in the rerun, only 3 got rebalanced. Naza. I don't see her numbers. Her numbers aren't up here, but she got the most rebalances out of anybody. Her skill 1 is a 70% agility and strength buff instead of 65, which is nice. Remember, she is 2 years old, so her numbers, her actual numerical values don't look so great. Her passive's got a buff. We'll talk about that, but she's not going to hold her own against modern units. She's basically, if she's facing anyone that's older than or younger than 6 months in the game, she's going to get absolutely clobbered. Skill 2 was a high skill, becomes a super skill, and removes penetration rate buffs. Skill 3 was also high and becomes a super class skill as well. SA is buffed for 4 turns instead of 2. So basically, everything you see before just gets a little tiny bit better. Passives, 40% strength, agility, and dex instead of 35%. Critical penetration rate become 20% instead of 15%. And as I said, numerically, she's going to probably get a little bit of an update, but not enough to matter. She's not going to get 500 HP. She's not going to get 200 or 300 endurance. So honestly, Naza good, but will she be good in 6 months' time? The answer is simply no. So if you're free to play, collect the units, get one of them if you really want them, but that's about it. These are not units that you're going to use in really any long-term capacity. They'd be used once, twice, then probably tossed to the wind. Daphne, she gets a little bit, not nearly as much. Her SA gets 70% per agility buff instead of 60%. 30% single target buff instead of 25%. 70% per agility buff. I'm going to guess that's under skill 3 instead of 60. So, good. Once again, probably be good in this upcoming Record Buster. But will she be very good beyond that? Record Buster units don't fade as quickly as Wargame units do. But they're also not as plentiful. And, most Record Buster units are only good in Record Buster, where Wargame units actually typically have uses outside of that. So, Passive was 45% strength and dex instead of 40%. Those are only rebalances, at least that we're aware of at the moment. She might get a little more, but once again, I don't think it's enough to make me tell you, oh my goodness, go out of your way. And no, you're just simply not going. Cassandra. Her SA is foes plural. It adds ailment resist down 40% for 3 turns. So, that's actually kind of nice. I'm not going to lie. Skill 1 buffs are 40% instead of 35%. And she gives herself 4 additional actions, which I don't think she had at the time. 4 additional actions, allies, 40% HP heal, and shorten status buffs by 2 turns. Here's the deal, guys. Cassandra's a stellar support. For now. But in 6 months' time, she's going to be squishy. Though, in fairness, support units do tend to be. I adore what her skill 1 does. I think it's really great, especially the extra action. But it's not worth summoning for her. If you have her, great. If you have 1 or 2 and you want to max her, I wouldn't be mad at you. But to understand that in a few months, she's once again, like the rest, going to be probably slightly more relevant because of what she got, but the vast majority of people watching this video are not going to use her. So as far as the rebalances go, you know, we got 3 units out of the 6. Am I impressed? No. Numbers wise, we don't actually have the numbers in, or at least I wasn't given the numbers. I could probably go look them up, but I can promise you they're not going to get, neither one of them is going to get 500 HP or 300 endurance, so it's not going to be enough to save them. Don't worry about the reruns unless you just want collection units. Definitely, absolutely go after Kaguya and Lyra. You really definitely want them. That's the video. Like, comment, share. Catch you guys tonight for the live stream.